there's a couple things going on here. We'll see how it plays out. My initial instinct is there's not a high likelihood of success on the criminal charge. I really don't think there is. I'm not a huge fan of Alec Baldwin's, but just as a lawyer, I don't see this playing all that well with the jury. However, I could be wrong. I do think, however, that people will celebrate this to some extent because A, he's loathed by people on the right, as he's been such a pit bull against all of them, especially Trump. And B, he's been so, to steal a term, smug about this whole thing since it happened, right? With all his multi-interviews. And I'll give you just as a reminder, this comment he made to George Stephanopoulos about how he really feels no guilt at all for shooting this woman, Helena Hutchins. Yes, it was an accident, but he did it. He pulled the trigger, though he denied it. But he really feels no guilt. Listen.
Your emotions are so clearly so right there on the surface. You felt shock. You felt anger. You felt sadness. Do you feel guilt?
No. I feel that there is. I feel that someone is responsible for what happened, and I can't say who that is, but I know it's not me.
Mm-hmm.
How big of him?
What a line.
The guy's a professional actor. It's a little bit difficult to believe him in a serious interview setting.
Yeah. Well, you guys, in addition to this job, you actually advise politicians on how to handle things, how to convince people of A or B or C. This, I would imagine, would not have been your advice.
No responsibility whatsoever. It seems to be a common theme with him. This isn't his first run-in, right? I mean, this guy's getting in trouble. It seems like once a year. This one, obviously, much higher level of gravity than most. But like, if he thought criminal charges were a possibility, again, I'm not a lawyer, but why go do a bunch of interviews, right? I got to imagine that anything he said at this point is admissible.
Keep your mouth shut. And I was on News Nation with my pal Dan Abrams last night talking about this a bit. And he ran an interesting SOT I hadn't seen before, sound on tape, SOT, soundbite, where Alec Baldwin gave an interview to the sheriff's department earlier in this case, shortly after the shooting. And you guys may recall, he would ultimately tell George Stephanopoulos he did not fire the trigger, right? He said he didn't pull the trigger. Actually, we'll play that. Here he is denying later to Stephanopoulos that he pulled the trigger.
So I take the gun and I start to cock the gun. I'm not going to pull the trigger. I said, do you see that? She goes, well, just cheat it down and tilt it down a little bit like that. And I cock the gun. I go, can you see that? Can you see that? Can you see that? And she says, and then I let go of the hammer of the gun and the gun goes off. I let go of the hammer of the gun and the gun goes off.
At the moment. The decisive
That was the moment the gun went off, yeah. That was the moment the gun went off.
It wasn't in the script for the trigger to be pulled.
Well, the trigger wasn't pulled. I didn't pull the trigger.
So you never pulled the trigger?
No. I would never point a gun at anyone and pull a trigger at them, never.
Mm-hmm. We never do that. Okay, so they've already said that's not possible. The FBI has already looked at it and said that's not possible on this gun. This gun would not have gone off if you didn't pull the trigger. And by the way, he also adds the admission that he was trained never to do that. So the training is don't do it. The standard of care is don't do it. Don't pull the trigger. He admits that, okay? But he tries to deny to George that he failed to comply with the standard. He said, oh, no, I would never. I was trained not to. I would never. But look at this soundbite again, courtesy of my friend Dan, who did his homework, that he admits, listen, there's a lot in here, but here he is talking to the sheriff's office. He admits he shot the gun, that he was the one who shot her. Listen.
I am speechless. We're here shooting. Everything was going fine. Joel is my friend. I'm one of the producers on this movie. Mm-hmm. We've developed this movie together for 3 years. I left my wife and 6 kids in New York to come here for a month to shoot this movie. And I'm the one that shot the gun today that had a live bullet go through that woman's body and into his body. And I need to know, how did that happen? Where did that bullet come from? Where did there are no live rounds in her kid, I'm told.
That line's going to matter. That's going to matter.
Oh, I mean, you don't need to be a PhD in engineering to understand that when you pull the trigger, it releases the hammer. And so 2 SOTs ago, he was describing how he pulled the hammer back and released the hammer. That fires the gun. What in the world is he trying to say? I know that George Stephanopoulos is probably going to be helpful to him, given his history as a Democrat and Alec
his
Baldwin's
deep knowledge of firearms, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. He did his homework, clearly.
Certainly wants to take them away from all of us. But the point of the matter, I mean, he literally just said, I pulled the hammer back and I let it go. That shoots the gun.
Well, This whole
No, but
thing
the
is so
FBI is saying
strange to
that's
me,
not true.
right?
The
Because-
FBI says you have to pull, you'd have to pull the trigger that in order to send the bullet out of the barrel, and that this must be a lie. That you would not, this gun would not be firing if he hadn't pulled the trigger. And so his statement to Stephanopoulos, according to the FBI, looked at it, is a lie. And that's what's going to, and all of this, Holmes, I know you're going to say something. All of this goes into whether a DA charges you or not. The DA is looking at these statements saying he admitted he shot the gun. He tried to deny it later. The FBI says you cannot shoot this gun without actually pulling the trigger. So he's lying. Why is he lying? It could suggest a consciousness of guilt, that there was wrongdoing. He admits what the standard of care is and that he's been trained in it. But in another interview seems to admit he didn't follow it. All this stuff could lead you into some very hot criminal water, and that's where he finds himself today. Go ahead, Josh.
I was just going to say, I'm just so confused by all of it because on one level, like, look, Baldwin's a scumbag, right? I mean, we all have known that. We followed his career. He's actually a pretty talented actor, but I mean, he is a scumbag. And I've no doubt that he's lying about all kinds of, whether he pulled the trigger, whether he didn't pull the trigger. I don't know. But like, on movies, don't we have blanks, right? I mean, I guess it's hard for me to get the connection between how Alec Baldwin has a live round in his gun. And I guess I heard from Stephanopoulos there that it was not in the script for him to pull the trigger. I mean, I just, the whole thing makes no sense to me. Clearly there is culpability here. A woman lost her life. It seems to me that anybody who's got live rounds in a weapon, Alec Baldwin, I find it hard to believe is the stage guy, is the prop guy, right? It's like putting the bullets into the gun.
Yeah, but I guess the point would be it's grossly negligent to pull the trigger on a set, especially if the script doesn't call for it.
Which I guess that's the issue.
Is that
the
the
piece I don't
standard?
know.
You would know more than us, Megyn, but like,
No, the script didn't
negligence.
call for it, and the standard of care is not to do it on a set. You don't actually have to pull the trigger. But this gun did not have blanks. It had dummy rounds, they're like models. A blank makes the sound and does some fake smoke, so it looks like you fired a real gun, a real bullet out of a real gun, live bullet. But a dummy round is just, it's like for a gun like this, like the Colt 45, where you can see the bullets as the audience just by looking at the outside of the gun. So it's there to just be pretty, it's there to sort of just look like, and in any event, what happened was a live round, an actual, live fireable bullet or two or three, we don't know how many, got loaded into that gun. And that was loaded by the armorer, we're told, Hannah Gutierrez Reed, and then provided to the first assistant director, who we also understand from the Wall Street Journal has agreed to plead guilty in the charge of negligent use of a deadly weapon, which is one down from what Alec and the armorer is also going to be charged with. And then he handed it to Alec saying, cold gun. And it was his responsibility and her responsibility to make sure a cold gun was in fact handed over. But there's a third responsibility in the hands of Alec Baldwin, who actually handles the gun, to not actually pull the trigger, says he. And some other actors like George Clooney have said you also, as the actor, would never take anybody's word for it. You'd actually look inside the gun and look at the bullets yourself. Now, how an actor is supposed to know if it's a dummy round versus a live round? The dummy round's whole goal is to look exactly like the live round. You have to take it out and shake it. One sounds one way, one sounds a different. How Alec Baldwin would have done that. I mean, that seems to me a lot to ask of any actor. But in any event, if he pulled the trigger, he's gone below the standard of care. So he's going to get charged. The armorer is going to get charged. Involuntary. The first assistant director is going to plead guilty to negligent use of a deadly weapon, which I think is probably where this will likely end with Alec. The negligent use of a deadly weapon. I think it's going to be fascinating to see how a jury, if it ever gets that far, reacts to a guy like Alec Baldwin in front of them. They tend to love celebrity. After a busy holiday season, now is the time to make time for you. Whether you want to refresh your fitness routine or just enjoy some relaxation, a Michael Phelps signature swim spa by Master Spas can be something you enjoy now and for the seasons to come. Making time for yourself, even if it's a 20-minute swim or sitting in the hot tub seats in a Michael Phelps swim spa, can be incredibly beneficial to your mental health and physical health. And that is what Master Spas is all about, helping you live life better. A Michael Phelps swim spa combines the benefits of a pool with the therapy of a hot tub. It comes in a variety of sizes to complement almost any yard, even if it's a small one. Exercising in the water is a great way to include physical activity into your daily life, whether you're a beginner or a fitness enthusiast. Michael Phelps swim spas are 100% made in the USA by Master Spas, the world's largest swim spa manufacturer. A Michael Phelps swim spa is energy efficient. You can use it all year long. Go to masterspas.com, put in the promo code MK to save $1,000 on a Michael Phelps swim spa or $500 on a Master Spas hot tub. That's masterspas.com, promo code MK. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.